wonderful to hear about Creator Chart. Where does it stand out in the content journey, and what USP does it serve?
What has been great is that, just the journey itself.
What inspired those pivots and transitions, and where do you see yourself today and in the future?
Everything that I could do in terms of my interests and my goals was being met there. And the moment it stopped being met, I just decided to pivot. A lot of younger people don't think about, and especially Gen Z, I've noticed in.
What is the next big milestone for Creator Chart that you're looking for?
Things are moving really quickly, and it just shows that if you're not really adding value to into your job, into the business, you actually are replaceable.
I see a lot of CXOs and founders who are very active, startups who have made their journey because they're very active on content. What is your message for them? Have you come across certain such clients so far?
If you truly enjoy content creation, like, you're going to be the best content creator.
Can we decode content creation as a mix?
3 platforms that I would recommend is LinkedIn, Substack, and Instagram.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the episode of Brand New You. Here, we feature women who are starting up and are giving a space for the young people just entering the workforce to get inspired. Today, we will feature a powerhouse in the content space. It's none other than Tanya Dubey. She spent a decade in the content space. She started up from being a business journalist to transitioning to LinkedIn and then starting up her own venture called as the Creator Chart. Today, 83% of the marketeers are influenced by AI in order to look at content in a very different way. Authenticity in content creation is a big buzzword. To debunk the myths around this space and to know more about Creator Chart, we have Tanya here with us. So I'm pleased to welcome Tanya on board to see how we can debunk this space and to know about Creator Chart a little bit more. Welcome, Tanya, to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Shruti.
Tanya, would love to hear more about you, about the journey that you've had so far, and you are building Creator Chart as a powerhouse community today. So would love to know more about that as well.
Great. Thanks, Shruti. And really happy to be here today. Love what you're doing and, highlighting female founders and, experienced leaders, which, of course, is like a great thing to see. So, of course, I'm Tanya. I have over a decade of experience in the content space. I usually like to say I used to be a journalist. And then, of course, I had marketing experience at LinkedIn for 4 years. And then finally, I started my own thing a couple of years ago. And I think what has been great is that, just the journey itself, right? I still feel like I'm learning every day. And, every time I do execute a lot of, interesting initiatives is when I gain a lot of confidence. And yeah, one thing about Creator Chat that's very interesting is, like you said, it's not just, an agency, but also we're building a community of creators who are also professionals with a 9 to 5 job. So that's something that makes us really different.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful to hear about Creator Chart. And of course, there are multiple such players today as well into the content creation space. But would love to know, where does it stand out in the content journey, and what USP does it serve?
Great. Thank you so much for asking. I think why we're different, Shruti, is that from the start, we were very clear that we want to only work with people who already have a job or expertise in their space, right? So sadly, we don't really work with Gen Z because I think, to talk about a topic or, to become popular or, even share knowledge about a topic, you need to have experience in it, right? Something I learned, of course, at LinkedIn, right? So we used to only take people seriously who have like a certain amount of experience, work experience in the space, which means that, we usually work with people in their late 30s or 40s or beyond 50s also we've worked. In fact, 2 clients have been in their 60s too. That's something that makes us different, number one. Number two is, the way we work is very different. So what we're trying to do is also get you some sort of a business outcome. What do I mean by that? It's essentially like a professional opportunity. So let's say, Shruti, if I was working with you and you tell me that, Tanya, I have X amount of experience in the marketing space and I'd love to get more Maybe as a consultant, I'd love to get more clients, or maybe in the future you'd like to become a consultant or an entrepreneur, start your own agency or start your own business, right? Maybe you want to start a completely different business, but use your marketing skills to market it and get that distribution, right? We'll work with you to ensure that your content serves that purpose. And what it does is, you and I both know this, the more you say a message again and again, you end up seeing a lot of impressive results. And we've seen that with our clients, with a lot of them getting like not just business collaborations, but even actual job opportunities, actual outcomes, which lead to them succeeding in their career. I think that's the best part about what we do at Creator Child.
Really, thanks, Tanya. I think I really like the part wherein you make a person as the centerpiece or the cornerstone in this whole journey. Try to see how that CXO or founder, what are the unmet needs, and actually make them as the hero, and try to work with them. So I think it's more in a consultative way that you try to bring out their story in the most natural way possible, also serving your purpose and also serving the other person's purpose. So love the synergistic outcomes that Create a Chart wishes to provide. But your journey, as you said, from marketing to content, it's been really interesting so far. And for the young listeners out there, it would be really nice if you could tell a little bit about your pivots, what inspired those pivots and transitions, and where do you see yourself today and in the future?
Thank you so much. Actually, we're right now talking almost at the end of the not the financial year, the calendar year, and what I end up doing every quarter, I would say, but most so at the end of the year, is being like very reflective, right? And what I've realized, Shruti, is that I'm someone who's been really lucky that I had very supportive, family and friends who always really encouraged me to go after my passion. So I never actually listened to other people and what their aspirations were. That's number one, right? At the end of the day, you have to follow what interests you, because that's the only way to grow. And you're only going to work hard in something that really interests you, right? So that's number one. Number two, I think all these pivots that you just spoke about, I think it just naturally happened, right? Either one job opportunity wasn't serving me and my goals, and I had to take that decision after having a significant experience. And sometimes it was as low as like 1.5 years. But even in my last corporate stint, which is for 4 years, I feel like I made the most of that opportunity. I was really grateful for that opportunity, but I made sure that I'm taking all my learnings and making sure that everything that I could do in terms of my interests and my goals was being met there. And the moment it stopped being met, I just decided to pivot. And that also is like a bigger process. I think something like you said, a lot of younger people don't think about, and especially Gen Z, I've noticed in, is that they're very impulsive, right? They'll buy things on credit or like on EMI, and they'll also like make very rash, I would say, career decisions. And one thing that I've noticed, if you want to have a successful career, and you always need to think of your career as a marathon, not a sprint. And a lot of them keep thinking about, okay, how do I go to the next new shiny thing, right? And a lot of times the next new shiny thing is planned in your career, right? I had to plan for each one of these steps. And of course, the entrepreneurship bit, which has been on for about a couple of years, I had to think about, okay, what does each phase look like? And am I going to succeed in each phase, and then only move on to the next level, right? Just to give you an idea, when I started for almost a year, I was working alone. So almost like you said, like a freelancer consultant. Then I ended up, hiring people full time. I was working with few freelancers, few interns, etc. Then I started hiring full time last year, and finally, like now we're at a team of 3 people, and we're going to expand to 6 people, getting our own office. All of these milestones wouldn't have happened if I hadn't planned for it, right? So I think a lot of times what people do is that they think about, okay, like someone's having a great life on social media, so let me just try and emulate that. A lot of times it's actually not the real picture. And a lot of times you have to start thinking about, hey, these are the highlights of people's lives, and I don't want to make a rash decision that doesn't work in my favor.
Yeah, super happy to hear about your milestones and what helped you to pivot. The fact that you had a strong sense of community out there. You had your family, you had your friends, your peer support, and often support makes all that is for entrepreneurship. So, looking at that and looking at your milestones, what is the next big milestone for Creator Chart that you're looking for?
So one cool thing that we have done in our team right now, so I've hired a chief of staff, which I feel like, hiring, I must tell you, is the hardest part for any business. And I had to hire somebody because I realized that I wasn't meeting my business outcomes because I was so focused on hiring and, looking at like performance of my employees, right? So when I hired her, we actually just got an office space for 6 months because we already know we're going to expand the team. We might stay in the same office space, but like you said, like my idea is to get like a very well functioning team and have a very healthy revenue so that we can keep growing the team and making sure that we're trying different things. I feel like as an entrepreneur or even as an employee, if you have the bandwidth, I would actually tell you to think about what is taking do a great time audit and think about what is actually taking up the most of your time. Try to outsource it, or even like see how you can use technology to make that time or that energy better utilized. And I think that's worked really well for me, and I think it's only up from here, right? Me being more at exactly like having a lot of AI agents in our workflow, making sure operations are bulletproof, making sure that there's actually something I haven't revealed a lot because I don't like to talk about things until they come true. But we are like exploring a products, something that I've always wanted to do, as have a scalable solution for the creator community. And that's exactly why we're really big on the community aspect for our business also.
Great. I think, Tanya, you spoke about AI agents and how you're also looking at building products maybe in the future. And with AI actually coming into the workforce today, there's always this mountain in the room question that, will it replace, will it aid us? As an entrepreneur, what do you think? How will Creator Chart actually synergistically grow along with AI, and how it will aid, or how do you look at AI helping the content creation space?
Okay, thank you so much for asking that question. Something I heard recently, which is actually a little sad, is that I remember even a couple of years ago when I was still in a corporate job, I would see a lot of people like being relaxed if they were in a great position in their workplace, and of course they were doing a lot, but in terms of what was expected out of them was very clear, right? With AI coming in, that expectation has gone through the roof. I mean, you can also like tell me the same thing that has happened in the last couple of years, which, see, you can look at every change in the workplace or even the workforce as an opportunity or as a bane, right? I'm honestly inherently optimistic, and that's something that really helps me overall in my career. And I would always tell you to look at AI as a tool, right? A lot of people are now talking about AI being a bubble. I don't know if you've heard of it. For all you know, by the time this podcast goes live, we might actually have a huge, development about how AI is not actually, such a big development as we might have thought of it to be, right? That being said, things are moving really quickly, and it just shows that if you're not really adding value into your job, into the business, you actually are replaceable, right? So like you said, there is an elephant in the room for sure. But I feel like if you're good at your job, if you're creating a lot of value, if you're working on your soft skills, if you have people behind you and that kind of support, and you're able to communicate that clearly, AI is not taking away anything, right? Even with Creator Chat, something I can tell you for a couple of years. And I think I was also being a little careful in year one. I was trying to ascertain that is entrepreneurship for me because, I'm a first time entrepreneur. None of my family members have been entrepreneurs. So for me, it was just a new ball game altogether. And my biggest learning, Shruti, and which is why I'm continuing to do this, and I continue to do this for at least, the near future, if not longer, is because I realize one, I can own my own learning outcomes, as an entrepreneur. Second, I can grow to the business according to how the market goes and my learnings and the kind of connections and network I have. And third, this business is not going anywhere, right? Whether it's marketing, whether it's like designing, whether it's other creative, things that AI is supposed to replace. I feel like it's going to replace like people who are not willing to, upskill themselves to reach that quality of work that is expected. But for the designers who are using AI very smartly, they're never going to be replaced. They're going to earn more than ever. The creators who are doing, using AI to create amazing content, they're going to again like succeed because at the end of the day, we know that volume does matter. That being said, the quality needs to be top notch, right? And I think I know we changed the question slightly, but because I really wanted to address AI in the workplace, but from a creator chat perspective, like I told you, the opportunity is immense. I know it's not going anywhere. Every day I meet like founders and CXOs who are thinking about how to increase their online footprint. And if people are not becoming our clients, they're definitely curious enough to work with us or be a part of the community. So that just shows you that this opportunity is immense.
So, Tanya, this brings me to a very important question in the AI content engine, which is authenticity. You see multiple pieces of content which is coming in to the online or the offline streams. We often wonder if it's AI generated, if it's authentic enough, if the person is speaking to what he or she wants to speak, right? And it basically it creates a persona, as you would say, a creator persona in somebody's mind. So how would you look at authenticity playing its game into this content engine?
That's a great question. Thank you so much, Shruti. I think at the end of the day, one thing we also do at Creator Chart, we've never worked with more than 10 people at a time. One, because we're a small team, number one. But that's also by design, right? We want to be very selective with the kind of people we work with. And what I've noticed is, Shruti, I don't actually work with people who I don't think have created like a spectacular, impact in their industry, right? And that's by design because I know that people who are there's no disrespect to anyone, but the people who are, probably just, in the middle management for years or, who haven't grown a lot in their career in, let's say, the last decade or 2 decades, we know for a fact that, they're not actually upskilling or they're not, figuring out their soft skills to grow in the corporate ladder or even, as a entrepreneur or as anyone, in the public space. That being said, what I've noticed is that mostly if you go to any successful person, they'll have very unique insights, right? They will always tell you what made them grow. They will always share their journey in a very authentic way. And for the people who can't share it, I feel like, or are very, secretive about it, they're also the kind of people who ideally shouldn't be public personas or shouldn't be creating content because there's so much noise. Exactly what you said, right? If a 24-year-old is giving the same gyan as a lawyer of, let's say, 50 years of age, there is a huge issue, right? And usually people don't want to get very generic gyan, right? If I ask you, Shruti, like, as a marketer, what are your top three career pivots, right? They're going to be very different from anyone else, right? Even like other Shrutis in the other rooms, they're not going to have the same experiences. And that's what makes you unique at the end of the day. So I would always highlight talking about, these kind of aspects which are very personalized, even when it comes to hiring or it comes to, let's say, marketing or it comes to selling or it comes to, any strategy that you have in your business, in your job, how you've grown, how you've, looked at your career. They're all very unique to people. Some of them, of course, follow certain frameworks. I mean, we can blame MBA for that. But I feel like even those frameworks need to be made your own. And I think that's where people want to know that how you did it so that they're inspired to take that jump at the end of the day, right? At least that's the kind of content I feel like should be highlighted, especially when it comes to actual knowledge, career, jobs, growth that we speak about, right? And I really hope to highlight that kind of content, and that's the kind of content I consume too.
Great. What I hear you say is actually have experiences as a part of your content journey because that makes you more authentic. Because each person has their own experiences to share with their world, whether it's setbacks, whether it's wins, whether it is aha moments, whatever it is to set them forward. So I think that's a great suggestion. But I also hear that there are a lot of people who have misconceptions regarding this space. So I see a lot of CXOs and founders who are very active, startups who have made their journey because they're very active on content. For example, GrowthX, Wint Wealth, etc. They make content where vis-a-vis certain CXOs or founders do not think that this is something that they should be doing. What is your message for them? Have you come across certain such clients so far, and how do you go about convincing them?
I think it's not just founders, it's all CXOs or anyone who's a very busy person. I mean, you can ask me and or you also, right? We are very busy and demanding jobs. At the end of the day, something we spoke about before I came in here is that if you truly enjoy content creation, like you're going to be the best content creator. So I would say my message is always like, there's something that's exciting for them about content creation. That could be the distribution that they get for the business, right? Or that could be that the brand is going to become really popular, right? Or that could also be like this could literally turn them into their own content engine. So the investment you make usually in content creation, whether it's like working with Creator Chat or working with any other agency, teammate, freelancer, anyone, right? Even you could have an internal team creating content for you. It can actually create like outsized benefits. I can give you another example. You already spoke about two amazing companies that I really look up to, but I genuinely really like something like a Whole Truth Foods founder, Shashank. And I always take his example because he's like the best embodiment of how he's become so integrated with the brand. That being said, he's like an individual with his own story. He went through a huge weight loss transformation. He loves talking about it, and always talks about how it worked out because he had a very balanced approach to nutrition, right? So I feel like any founder, whether it's a B2C company, B2B company, people want to know and connect with stories, right? If people know that you have the skin in the game, they're more likely to connect with you. They're more likely to work with you. They're more likely to, just be more open to working or even interacting with you, right? Or your brand. And that's what ends up creating the best kind of customers and outcomes for your business. So if there's a founder or there's a CXO who has the same, hesitancy about content creation, if you didn't get convinced till now, I would just say that, just think about how this could actually help you in your business. So if you are out there doing outreach, if I told you that, content creation can literally cut your outreach time into like 30% of what it is, why wouldn't you do that, right? You're anyway spending so much time on your sales, you're on outreach, on creating these partnerships, and content creation is just a faster way and quicker way to do that. Plus, like the benefits of making friends, making connections, creating that network, creating that comfort doesn't hurt either, right? So I feel like if you're still not convinced that, then like we need to talk.
No, I think super interesting to know how CXOs or founders look at content creation and what are the pros and the cons of it, and actually delving deep and why actually they need to do it, because there are a lot of pros more than cons, because you said outreach time gets lesser, your online presence, your brand value increases, etc. Uh, can we decode content creation as a mix? Like, in order to create good content, you look at channels, you look at the type of content, whether it's videos, etc. We had a chat outside, and you said that I really need to increase the frequency. So there are different levers in content, and of course, Creator Chart has personalized levers for each and every CXO or founder or a personal that you work with. But what is an ideal mix, if I were to ask you?
If you ask me what's my go-to mix, and that usually works for a lot of people, but of course, like you said, we do personalize this for a lot of people depending on their comfort level at the end of the day, right? So a lot of people would come to me and say that they love writing. I would say if you love writing, your platforms are LinkedIn and Substack because people love reading on these platforms. A lot of people still like Twitter or X, but I mean, it's a mixed bag because there are not a lot of authenticated profiles in there. That being said, I know of a lot of creators who are doing really well on Twitter. Something I haven't figured out yet, but definitely again one of my goals in 2026 for creator professionals, as I like to call them, right? And then second of all, I would look at the platform first because that'll help you figure out what is the frequency you should be looking at. I'm not a huge fan of people who post every day. I feel like that's unrealistic. Also, like it helps. It also doesn't like I feel like you shouldn't create too much content because then you're just creating for the sake of it. I know of creators who do create content every day, but you have to realize that they're full-time content creators, right? A very few CXOs or people who want to grow in other areas of their life would be creating content every day. That being said, I would still say you should create at least 2 to 3 pieces of content every week. You also spoke about content mix. I believe in, of course, trying different formats. That's also to figure out what is your favorite format, especially if you're, starting out. I would say the easiest is writing. I feel like a lot of people find it very easy to do. Now with a lot of AI, Gen AI tools, you can easily write and, make it your own. That's number one. Number two, I would say carousel is a very easy way. Again, Canva is great. Canva has an AI tool right now. There's Gamma that can help you create like these carousel slides that you're looking at, and they're doing really well on Instagram and LinkedIn. So again, depends on the platform, but carousels usually work really well as a second format. And very easy to get graphics these days. There's no copyright issue, all of that. So that's pretty cool. Third is, of course, video. We're right now in a podcast. This requires the highest time commitment, you are aware, and the highest investment too. So, unless you're really serious about creating this impact, you shouldn't be investing in video at all, especially if you're trying out and you're not sure. This comes with confidence. It is a skill that you need to nurture. That being said, you and I are also aware that video gives you the outsized benefits of all these three. So a lot of people who are not comfortable with video, my plan is usually in month 2 or month 3, getting them to at least try video. Something as simple with their phone if they find something like this very intimidating. But I think these three formats usually work for most people. And yeah, I would say for creator professionals particularly, three platforms that I would recommend is LinkedIn, Substack, and Instagram.
Wow, that definitely seems like a content creation playbook that I will speak to you later about, and I think the young listeners out here would definitely like to hear about this episode, and I'm sure they'll connect with you later on as well. You'll get a lot of messages around this mix, and thanks for decoding that mix. Looking at the plethora of the mix that I see, you spoke about frequency, you spoke about the different platforms that you have, at least 5 to 6. You spoke about the tools. I'm sure there's content fatigue on both sides, on creating content as well, and also for the people who are consuming content as well. And I'm happy that you spoke about creating that particular exact balance. And I'm sure that certain CXOs or founders, of course, they go through the plan of 2, 3 months that you propose, or 6 months as you propose, but they might hit that roadblock or that mountain that that is not allowing them to step further. So what are your thoughts about how to skip that, and how to keep it going? Do you shoot before, keep the content over there, and then use it, or how do you see that?
No, that's a great question. In fact, I myself, find it some days harder to push through and create content, right? Like, I think I can give you one example is that I've just been very lazy on Reels. Writing comes very naturally to me. But I know, again, Reels can give you like outsized, benefits, and that's something I have to look at for sure. I think my suggestion would be to always create a content bank. So that this is what I do with my clients, and I would suggest it to anyone who wants to create content. Something you're doing, Shruti, like you shooting multiple podcast episodes in this day because life is unpredictable. You don't know if you'll get the time or the energy to do this as often as you'd like. And so having a backup is always a great option to create that consistency, right? And consistency is what is going to get you, amazing results, because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to work, right? And we have to be consistent at least for 6 months, exactly what you said, before you start seeing, amazing results for any piece of content on any platform that you're targeting, right? Second of all, my suggestion would also be to think about the benefits of content creation. So, one is what I like to say vanity metrics, and I'm not going to say that they don't matter, but likes, comments, all of these things are secondary, right? Are you doing this to become a better writer? Are you doing this to become a more coherent speaker? Are you doing this to, increase your articulation? Are you doing this to exactly what I said about founders or CXOs? Are you doing this for the business, right? When you start thinking of these larger goals, which actually matter to you and why you're doing this particularly, then engagement becomes secondary. That being said, engagement is a huge metric. That's something like my team, of course, sees as a goal. But my first question is always, why are you doing this? And if I feel like that's not aligned, like if someone comes and tells me, I want to become a celebrity, they'll do anything on social media. And that's usually very bad for the brand, and we can't represent that kind of a brand. So think of yourself as a brand, and would you like to represent a brand like that? Probably not. Right? So have those like, very simple, what I would say, guiding principles that this is why I'm doing content creation. Like for me, it's very clear. I can give you one idea which is really cool is that I've never done outreach for my business till now. So I'm really hiring now people so that I can do outreach and we can invest in outreach. just to grow the business really fast. But can you imagine, Shruti, I survived for almost 2 years with my current audience on LinkedIn. That just shows you the impact that platform can have by you just being consistent, you just being, extremely active on the platform, and people reach out to you,
Yeah.
to work with you at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's exactly why I would suggest that you should look at content creation as a tool and not as an outcome. And when you start doing that, then becomes very easy, or at least easier, to create content. But if you're putting a lot of your self-respect or a lot of, like, I would say, self-worth into the numbers that you see on each piece of content, then that's not going to help you either, right?
Yeah.
So I've heard of so many people. I have friends who are YouTubers. I have, of course, like, I work with content creators, and they tell me that for at least a year, or at least sometimes even a year and a half, they didn't even make proper money out of content creation. Can you imagine that? Right now, you probably have a job and you should be really grateful for that. Which means it's a journey, and you know that the kind of benefits you're expecting to get from content creation will only happen over time, and you have to, keep at it. It's very similar to literally having a second job.
Yeah, what I hear you say, Tanya, is actually find your personal moat. And if you find your personal moat, stick to it. Maybe create like a SWOT of yourself, your strength, weaknesses, build that content engine and trust an organic presence because that's going to amplify your journey further. So, thanks, Tanya, for sharing those little tidbits that people would have in order to go through this content journey. Going back to the personal moat bit, just before we started this episode, you said that you were in business school when you were 6 months, and it took you 6 months to get started with Create a Chart and take you into the journey of entrepreneurship. So, as we have 22-year-old people, listeners out there who just want to, enter workforce, what is your advice to them as to how to look at entrepreneurship or this job journey altogether? What does it take? What does it matter? Does it, does it take resilience? Does it take support? What does it take?
I I'll be very honest with you, right? So even at Mesa, when we started, just to give you a very interesting, data point, I guess, in real life, is that when we started, we were the first batch, and we only had around 65 students in our batch, right? By the end of 6 months, when they've asked us who wants to, start their own business, because of course Mesa is a startup focused business school, versus who wanted to, probably look into the job outcome. And there were a lot of 21-year-olds also in my batch, right? It was a great mix. Like, there were 30-year-olds like me, but there were also 20-year-olds and mid 20s, all of that, right? So people with experience, people with very little experience, in the mix. You won't believe, out of those 60, around 40 people said that they wanted to start their own business. Do you want to guess how many people actually started their business and were able to, like, continue to, on the entrepreneurial journey 2 years from that date?
Maybe 10%.
Yeah, like, not honestly, I can count on, like, one hand, like probably 5 people who ended up doing that out of 40. That just shows you how difficult the entrepreneurship journey really is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not easy. So I don't want to discourage you. There are a lot of really great programs. There's Antler for young people. I think recently Nikhil Kamath started Foundry with Kishore Bayani. Do read the terms and conditions. It's a little bit like a venture builder model. It does have, like, a lot of outsized benefits for them particularly, but it's still a great opportunity for someone who's 21 years old. I wouldn't, probably look at that. I would say there are a lot of, like, schools like Mesa. There's a lot of schools who are giving you that kind of an experience to at least try out entrepreneurship, if not, pursue it. So if you're still studying, or if you're thinking of doing an MBA, I would actually encourage you to try that out. Try applying to these schools, see how it makes you feel. Does that really align to the kind of goals that you have for your career, right? That being said, I feel like, people don't take their job seriously if they're trying to be an entrepreneur. And I think that's really misguided, because each one of the jobs that I had, Shruti, and I think I worked in like 5 different companies. If you count my, internships, probably 8 companies or 10 companies that I worked in, all great brands, right? Media houses, marketing firms, all of that. And I would say that I took each one of them very seriously. I completely immersed myself in the company. I almost took charge. I was very accountable. I was really proud of my work, right? And I feel like, when you don't care about your job, it shows. You all also know, right? You're expected to honestly be an entrepreneur, which is like being an entrepreneur within the company. And if you're not doing that, especially in the age of AI, you're not going to get the best jobs. You're not going to get the best outcomes, and you're genuinely wasting your time. So I would say that be very careful about the kind of job opportunities you do end up taking or applying for, and give it to your all. And you don't know where it really leads you, right? I feel like young people have a lot of pressure. I really feel for them. Like I should say this. I feel like 20-year-olds now feel like they need to be where like 40-year-olds were, back in our day.
There's just a lot of noise out there.
People think they want to be millionaires in like 2 years, and I'm like, but you don't have the skills. You haven't, put yourself or immersed yourself in your interests yet for you to try and do that. Just to give you perspective, I started my entrepreneurship journey after 8 years of working in a corporate, saving a lot of money, thinking about, like you exactly said, what is my financial situation going to be? What kind of model is really going to help me survive in year one, year two, right? And the first 2, 3 years are the hardest in entrepreneurship journey, right? And I might tell you all the highlights of the journey, but there are lots more that's going behind the scenes that keeps me up at night, even weekends, right? So don't take it lightly. You're just going to fail miserably if you don't have a plan. And I think really investing in education, really investing in finding the right job, right mentors, right managers, really works. So don't think about like short term gains, think about a long term vision. And I know it's very difficult with social media. I would even say, as someone who works in the social media space, really, really audit the kind of content that you're consuming, right? Like I have started doing that because I was losing my mind doom scrolling, right? And I just realized this is not aligned with the kind of person I want to be. So please think about that in your 20s. I would kill to be in your space because I would do so many things differently in retrospect, right? But you need to be really careful. And yeah, but still watch YouTube and nice channels. I think that really helps.
I think a lot of noise out there. It's very important to invest in yourself. It's very important to go above and beyond, as you said, because you just can't take things for granted. You really need to invest a lot, read resources, also learn, upskill yourself in this journey, have the right skill set and mentors. Oh my God, I think there's just a lot, 360 degrees plethora that one can do as a person. So I would always urge at least the youngsters to go back, check, understand how they can optimize themselves, how they can build themselves up in the journey. But thanks, Tanya, for your time. It was wonderful having you here. Loved hearing about Creator Chart, loved hearing how you built yourself, how you built the company, and what's your vision like. So, thanks, Tanya, for coming to Brand New You, and would love to hear more from you in the near future.
Thank you so much. I love being here, Shruti. And best of luck for your podcast. Really like being here.
Yes, thanks.